Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy, powered by TrustArc. Here are your hosts, Paul Breitbart, Ralph O'Brien, and Dr. Kay Royal.
Welcome to 2025, and welcome to Season 6 of the Serious Privacy Podcast. This is a new year, and some things will be different. We have a new European Commission up and running with new laws on the horizon. The Digital Fairness Act, anyone? The United States has, of course, inaugurated Donald Trump as their 47th president. We have also welcomed Delaware, Iowa, Nebraska, New Hampshire, and New Jersey to the data protection law family. But for us, the biggest change you've heard in our new intro, which is, of course, due to the fact that we are officially welcoming Ralph O'Brien as our third co-host. And on top of that, we also have a guest today. Ilchenko is TrustArc's General Counsel and Chief Privacy Officer and is joining us today to look ahead at 2025. What hasn't changed much is me. My name is still Paul Breitbart.
And I am still Kay Royal, and you are still welcomed to Serious Privacy. We do have a guest today, so he got to see me making faces at Paul and trying to crack him up, but Paul's been around me way too long now. It's not as easy to break him anymore.
Well, it's been 5 years, Kay, that we've been doing this. This is the start of Season 6. Maybe also good to clarify, maybe not all three of us will be on all of the episodes or the full time of all of the episodes, because one of the reasons why we added Ralph to the team is that you and I knew this last year that with life back in full swing and some housing and travel and all those kind of issues, sometimes it's pretty impossible to record podcasts. So with a slightly bigger team of hosts, we hope that we are able to give you weekly episodes as it should be. But Val, welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be on. Excited and appreciative to be on. I mean, we've done a webinar before. Kay, we talked briefly at the the GPS and BP Global Privacy Summit last year. But super excited to be on kind of one of the official Serious Privacy podcasts.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. We have a lot of fun here. So with that, let's get to the unexpected question, which, funny enough, Val helped create the unexpected question today, which is, who's your favorite villain? And you can pick a villain from any universe, Marvel, DC, Disney, the Star Wars, the Star Trek. I don't care. I mean, we're all hearing Khan echoing in our heads now. But who is your favorite villain?
Who are you echoing in your head?
Khan!
Star Trek? Is that Star Trek reference?
No, sorry.
Yeah.
Blank face.
Oh, we're both burned.
I'm not very good at pop culture.
I'm okay at it, but I'm still drawing a blank.
Oh, all right, fans. Y'all got to educate these guys on Khan from Star Trek. I'm telling you.
What is Star Trek? Star Trek,
yeah. You did. You got Star Trek. Well, that's fabulous.
Yeah.
But Lord have mercy. Okay.
I'm going to embarrass myself and admit that I only know Khan from the new Star Trek movies and not the originals. So it's, watch it once.
There you go. All right. So who is your favorite villain?
So this one is a little drawn out now, but there was this running joke on a show that also is pretty dated. So like in How I Met Your Mother, which was popular, 15 years ago, there was this running joke about how Johnny Lawrence from the Karate Kid movies was secretly like a hero and, Ralph Macchio was this bully and whatever. And it was always this kind of funny running gag. But then they introduced Cobra Kai eventually, I hope as a direct response to How I Met Your Mother. And so, you got to root for Johnny Lawrence, especially since he's kind of become like the hero in the Cobra Kai show, which is ridiculous and cheesy and awesome if you like Karate Kid movies. If you've never seen the Karate Kid movies and you watch Cobra Kai in a vacuum, I don't know. I don't know if people get it, but like the entire thing is just an homage to the Karate Kid movies. All three of them, actually, except Johnny Lawrence.
So, Paul, your favorite villain? He's going to give me a real life.
There's a few that spring to mind. One of them would be Raul Silva. And I'm looking at you to see whether that rings a bell.
Nope.
Nope. Bond villain in Skyfall.
What's the name again?
Raul Silva, played by Javier Bardem. So he was really, really good, and I really enjoyed that performance.
Skyfall. He was the one that's teeth rotted away from the arsenic pill or whatever.
He was really good. He's a great actor.
The Hannibal Lecter-like type.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one I liked. Cruella de Vil, but then as played by Glenn Close in the live action 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah.
She was really, really nice.
She was.
The Emma Stone version was now that I have kids, I see all this stuff. So that one was pretty cool, actually.
That one is still on my list to watch, so I haven't seen that one yet, but I have a soft spot for Glenn Close.
Yep.
And the third one, I'm not sure whether she qualifies as a villain, but that would be Alphabet.
Oh, yes. Yes. I'm planning something around Elphaba, as you can imagine, of course. Oh, I love that. I love those. Okay, so here's the thing. I cosplay. People know. I actually am building a cosplay that is I love to do mashups. It's a mashup of Cruella de Vil and Harley Quinn in the last movie where she had the red formal dress on and was meeting with the dictator or whatever. So I am marrying Harley Quinn with Cruella de Vil. So I'm doing a Cruella Quinn or a Harley de Vil. I think it's going to be a Harley de Vil with the long black and white trench coat.
That's great. Well, I appreciate it's not Wicked because as good as those characters are, I have two young daughters. So Wicked, the movie is always playing. It's always listened to in the car. My daughter is now either coloring in her Disney villain coloring book or her Wicked coloring book.
Love it.
My 4-year-old only will dress as Elsa, Elphaba, or Glinda every day.
Oh, yeah. My 3-year-old granddaughter is the same. Everything. She's a princess until I bought her the young Maleficent costume. So she still calls it a princess dress, but I've tried to explain to her it's Maleficent. So I don't think anybody would need to guess. My favorite villain is Maleficent. Only because I fell in love with the Angelina Jolie movies. I loved Maleficent before then. But probably before then would say the one that I dressed as the most was Cruella de Vil when I would cosplay a villain. And I cosplayed her several times until the Angelina Jolie movies came out with Maleficent.
I take it you've seen the Descendants movies then too, right? Which have the young Maleficent.
I watched it once. I have to say I was not a big fan, but it is the Descendants outfit that I bought for her. So I'm not a big fan of those. I tried, but didn't really hit the right mark for me for some reason. But I like the Wednesday movies. Does that count?
Which movies?
Wednesday.
I don't think I've heard of those.
Oh, the Wednesday girl from the Addams Family.
Oh, the word thing. Yeah.
Netflix, I think it is. I love those. All right.
That's right.
Actually get to some privacy, shall we, Paul?
Well, I mean, the show is still called Serious Privacy and not Serious Villains, so might be a good idea.
Look, that changed. I'm sorry. I'm the one making the stickers for the DC Summit. So as you can imagine, I've already got one in process for Wicked.
Val, tell me, what do you make of the plans of the new villain-in-chief? Sorry, the new U.S. president. How will that impact privacy in the United States in 2025?
Really good question. And I feel like there are so many hot takes. I mean, look, let's start with, I'm going to start with a little optimism because I like to be a glass half water guy, right? I think that some of the stuff around Stargate and supporting more technology and innovation sounds really cool. I mean, that initiative, Stargate's the initiative between Oracle and, keep me honest here, folks, Oracle, OpenAI, and there's one more, right? Stargate, Oracle. Who else is involved in that?
Anyways, the third one, yeah.
Yeah, it's SoftBank, right? That's the other group. So I think there's some really cool things happening, right? I think there's some investment coming into innovation, which is great. I mean, I think you've kind of seen that was maybe coming a little bit with how some of the bigger tech companies have been aligned with the new administration.
Yep.
So I think that's the problem, right? Do I think the kind of yank first and then replace later approach that they're taking will work? I don't know. I mean, you could, I'm pretty diplomatic, so you'll probably get that through for our listeners. Or I can understand why they'd want to do that to kind of open the innovation waves and then refine as we see. I mean, typically more conservative GOP will do things like that, right? They're going to come down a little bit less hard on the tech sector in some regards. I think pro is that there's a possibility that with a more Republican controlled government and with kind of what we're seeing in tech, that there is an increased likelihood right now that we may get that federal bill that was hard to pass before just because of majority controls. So that's one aspect of it. Flip side,
we'll get some version, whether or not it's the version we all want is different, but we'll get some version.
Yeah. And look, I mean, you could debate that too. Like, I don't know. I kind of want there to be a ceiling, and I know California and others don't want a ceiling. And I think that the problem with what we've seen in the past of these federal bills is that, it's either too much or not enough, right? If you're in a blue state like California with pretty mature, I mean, depends how you ask, but pretty mature laws in privacy, they're going to say, we don't want something that doesn't give us kind of free rein to do more. And then you'll see other places that are like, why are you trying to control business, right? Let's say fair and all that stuff. But it would be nice to have a more uniform approach, kind of like GDPR, although you could debate that too, because over time, as GDPR has passed, like there has certainly been more data protection authority activity and deviations. Really easy example of the deviations of like, Janelle versus ICO, although ICO is now no longer part of the EU, but just an example, or the German Data Protection Authority, others, they've all taken slightly different takes on like, what are exclusions and exceptions to tracking technologies, being strictly necessary and things like that. I know that's e-privacy a little bit too, and PCR. So, look, there's deviations, but I think that something that is a little bit more of a peanut butter approach could be useful in the U.S., and there's a slightly better chance of it now than that's the problem. I think that if that doesn't happen, because lots of people don't think it'll happen, I think that the flip side could be that the states will step in, and I think my kind of citation here is Dobbs, right? After the Supreme Court Dobbs decision, Washington, My Health, My Data came out. New York just passed their health bill like a minute ago, right? Yeah, I think it was like a week ago or something like that. So I think that, there's things that will happen either way. Because Paul and Kate, people have definitely asked me, does this mean that privacy is going to kind of lessen or deregulate? I think my kind of quick answer is like not a chance, because either there will be more momentum on a federal bill, which you could debate, or, states will try to pick up the slack and they will continue to create what we're living in today, which is more fragmentation and one-upism. But, people are getting more privacy today than they were yesterday. And so I think, pound for pound, it's either no change or there will be improvement in the space, either because of state reactions or because somewhere there may be the chance for at least increased, federal privacy that will at least create some kind of baseline.
I think you are right there, Val. I do expect there may be some form of legislation on the horizon, but probably something that is more business focused than fundamental rights focused. So it would once again probably be more an economic privacy bill that would be sent to the House and to the Senate than really fundamental rights legislation like we've seen recent years with the state omnibus privacy laws, which did have a GDPR element, a fundamental rights element in them. I do believe that in part may very well be a concern.
And I mean, so you're probably right. I guess like this is just we are navel gazing now, right? Looking into law, but like, any chance that because I think that's the most likely expected outcome, right? But I guess there's a little bit of a chance that the tech lobby, informal or formal, pushes for uniformity anyways, because they say, look, like, we get that on the federal level, you guys have a certain policy that's more economically driven, et cetera. But meanwhile, we are, I'm speaking kind of figuratively, but they might be saying something like, we're getting crushed out there trying to deal with the fact that there's new state laws coming out every year. I mean, you all mentioned a couple, but the stat that I've been throwing around that I've mentioned to our board is there's a 100% increase in U.S. state laws in effect this year as compared to all of 2020 and 2044 combined. That blows my mind. And if people haven't noticed that, they should, because that means that everything from CCPA to now is going to be matched just in this year in the U.S., which means that, like, sure, every company out there should be thinking about this, but big tech in particular is under a significantly higher onus to comply. I mean, we see that in Europe. They get scrutinized more often. They get the good and the bad press more often. They get fined, relatively speaking, more often than your, mid-market B2B SaaS company or whatever. So, there's a, I guess, question for you both. But do you think there's a chance that the tech lobby will succeed in getting some momentum around that? Hey, this is going to make it easier for us to conduct business, that instead of letting the states regulate, which is going to cause it to become really hard to kind of operate.
Oh, wow. I really hesitated on that one, didn't I? So
big question.
It's a good question. So if we get a federal privacy law passed, given the majority now in both houses, it will be a Republican flavored privacy law, which is fine. But I do think that means that there might be some arguments over some of the features that have stopped the laws from passing previously. So do I think that big tech would be in favor of a federal privacy law that would preempt state privacy laws? Yes, I absolutely do think they would be in favor of that, because the one thing most of them have in common is they are subject to the California law, which none of them like, because there's a private right of action should they have a breach, and everyone has a breach. Let's just be honest. Everyone has a breach. If you don't think you have a breach, then you just simply haven't found it yet. All of our data is out there somewhere anyway. So how can you possibly tell if a particular breach is the one that caused you harm, when I dare anyone to challenge whether or not the dark web has any of their private data? So I do believe big tech would be in favor of that. But here's the thing. As Paul and I joked about last year, my predictions for 2024 sucked. I mean, sucked rotten goose green eggs. I figured the states were not going to pass laws, that everybody was going to be focused on the election, given the huge year that that part was true, that it wound up being. But this year, I don't know that I have your optimism there, Val. I don't know that I think the federal are going to pass a privacy law that is sufficient, and you didn't say this part, to grant us adequacy under GDPR.
Oh, that will not happen. That you can forget.
Or are we going to get something passed? There may be, but that would then be our fears realized, right? They would pass something that is so watered down and so weak, it's really meaningless. It's a law that could later be amended, but it may be really, really weak, which is worse than not having one at all, right?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, but what about places where we don't have one at all? But, you answer out of thing.
Yeah.
Paul, thoughts?
Yes, I agree with Kay, and no, I do not agree with Kay, and also not with you, because I don't believe that big tech is going to push for federal legislation.
No.
Big tech will push for deregulation, and we've already seen that happening in the run-up to January 20th, the inauguration of President Trump, and we've seen it happen probably in recent days. There is a reason why the executive order was repealed. That's in part because big tech doesn't like. Yeah, there is a reason why other tech laws or tech executive orders have been rescinded, or why they are making changes or planning changes. I don't believe that big tech will be pushing for regulation. They will be pushing for more freedom when it comes to misinformation, when it comes to what they call censure of information on their platforms. We've already seen that happening. But also in the transatlantic relationships, I do believe that the next U.S. government will be much more protectionist when it comes to the U.S. big tech under that America First policy. And that is a concern when you look at it from the rest of the world perspective, because we have become so dependent for almost everything we do on U.S. big tech that U.S. big tech being deregulated, and then at the same time threatening with trade sanctions as soon as other jurisdictions even think about regulating US big tech, like then Vice President-elect J.D. Vance did at the end of last year, saying, well, if Europe wants to impose fines on US big tech, then we will impose tariffs or leave NATO. That is not just unfair politics, but that's also really scary from a transatlantic open society free trade perspective.
They all heard my eyes roll at that one.
I mean, look, you're probably right. And I think kind of two comments there. One, there's an interesting Politico article about that point, right? About how lawmakers are urging the commission to kind of resist pressure. So folks could, check that out if they're looking for one viewpoint at least. I mean, look, you're right. And that does sound challenging. However, I think, behind closed doors, hopefully useful for the readers, but behind closed doors, I think whenever anything has happened, including the fall of Privacy Shield or adequacy decisions or anything else like that, you always hear that, like, while there are a lot of reasons and rationale and causes for this, some of them are not always, altruistic and about just rights of individuals and freedoms. And some of them do have to do with trade relationships, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do that and it's hearsay and it's rumor and it's stuff you hear behind closed doors. But I mean, people do argue that is a part of it. And, if you look at even how the Privacy Shield fell and the fact that the jurisdiction was that the court couldn't look at some of the practices of the European member states, as far as I'm aware, who commented on it, opined on what was happening in the US. Yeah, you can see that nothing is black and white here, right? It's all nuanced.
No, that's certainly true. And we've seen that the data privacy framework at least lives to fight another day, because it's one of the few executive orders, I guess, of the Biden government that was not rescinded. I was going through the list looking for 14086 and I saw 82, 83, 84, 85, then 87. Like the one that they skipped is this one. So that's a good thing. The privacy framework is still there. The transatlantic data flows are still continuing. And to some extent, the proof of the pudding will be in the eating, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Coming from the American side of thing is painful to hear. It's screamed into a microphone or whatever. And do we believe things are going to happen? So, but I mean, we can look at some of the things that have happened in the first few days of the administration. So we're recording this just so y'all can put it in perspective on the 22nd, because this will come out on data privacy.
Data protection.
Day of 2020, January 28th, 2025. So we will be a week behind, basically, of where we are now in saying. So anything else could be proposed in the next week. I just have to put that caveat out there. We're speaking at where we are right now. So something could change this afternoon.
No crystal balls here.
Yeah, I mean, it's staggering. I mean, it's, really, how many people were expecting this flurry? I mean, I know they've been promising it, but still, to kind of open up the newspaper or whatever you use for news, that, these days, like, and I'll say newspaper figuratively because it was my iPad news app.
Right.
And to kind of read about all that, it's been staggering. So I think that the velocity of change has been, it's pretty hard to crystal ball. I think everything now would be a hot take, basically.
Well, and think about, this is our first episode since the end of 2024. So there was the whole flurry of privacy enforcements here in the United States that was kind of like a rush to the goal line, right? It was a push, get this out, before people no longer work there or before it's no longer a priority for the administration. And that's not an insult. Everybody knows that every change of administration are going to have different priorities for that administration. But in this case, I think they intuited that a lot of the enforcements might be stopped. Some of them we did see stopped after the election anyway. But seeing the flurry of enforcement and proposed changes to laws and even some of the executive orders that Biden pushed out. I mean, let's talk about the 28th Amendment to the Constitution, which is the Equal Rights Act. It was staggering to see the amount of movement that we saw come out of politics in the U.S. this year leading up to the change or the transition in administrations. So there was a lot that happened. We're not just covering the past week in privacy. We're covering like the past month in privacy. And there was a lot that has happened in the past month. I personally, one of my favorites, other than the 28th Amendment, which I have to see where that is sitting now. Supposedly it's ratified, but
That would be the Equal Rights Amendment, right?
yes, the ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, exactly. Which we probably all thought was already part of the Constitution, but guess what, people, it wasn't. It just took a long time to get ratified. So it's interesting to see that one. But otherwise, my favorite one I think that came out was the flurry of enforcements by Texas. I love to see the Texas Attorney General and how active his office is in enforcement on privacy in connected cars, privacy on breaches that have come through, privacy on just about everything else in the world. And a lot of them are under their biometric law, not necessarily their privacy. But it's been really cool to see the amount of enforcement on that level. And now we've got other state laws that are going into effect this year. We'll start seeing more enforcement, I do believe, on a state level. So of all the privacy things that have happened, and yes, we have a lot in Europe that have come out well, and a lot are focused around AI. What's your favorite?
Ooh, that's a good question. I mean, look, it's funny. I think my perspective has changed a lot since coming to TrustArc, which only.
You're sitting a little close to the opera now.
Well, it's the eye of the storm a little bit. I mean, I think that when I was at I didn't do a quick intro, but for those of you who haven't heard me talk before, before coming to TrustArc, I spent about 8 years of a company called GoTo, formerly LogMeIn. Before that, I was at Hardware Software. And before that, I was at the U.S. Air Force on the DoD civilian side for a little bit. Particularly, that was a million years ago now, right? But particularly at Progress and GoTo, I was thinking about B2B SaaS companies with a particular footprint, particular client base, et cetera.
Right.
At TrustArc, I mean, we have clients that are, in a lot of ways, it's probably like what folks see at some of the bigger firms or consulting practices. Like, we kind of have everybody with all of their issues. So I think that my perspective on what's the most fascinating has just drastically changed. And I think that I just see that, everybody's fighting their own sort of privacy demons, whether that's trying to create that unified North Star program or being worried about what's coming next. I mean, some of the laws that I found like intellectually fascinating have definitely been these healthcare laws. Those of you who don't know, like last year was the year of AI bills, education bills, children's bills, biometrics bills, and health, right? If I didn't say health already. Lots there, right? Lots there. I think especially with that GM decision of the FTC, we'll hear more and more about connected vehicles, like so Texas. But the healthcare stuff was kind of fun because, I mean, it was, as a person hearing our clients having to grapple with it, I had sympathies mostly. It's challenging and there was ambiguity. And you could argue that ambiguity started with Sephora because Sephora was about cosmetics. They could have had a healthcare consideration, when you're buying. I'm assuming folks know who are listening, but if they don't, a couple of years back now, there was a famous California Attorney General decision against Sephora for use of tracking technologies and how those were considered a sale of data. Mm-hmm. While I don't think it was as heavily covered, the sort of subtext there was, if somebody's buying, I don't know, a cream that is for a specific gender and it's an age control cream or whatever, you can glean some characteristics off of that, right?
Yeah.
And you think about those kinds of things. And then what happened separately, but happened anyways, which was Dobbs, which was the Supreme Court decision that reversed Roe v. Wade, for those of you who aren't familiar, which was the federal bill about abortion. There was this big flurry of other laws that came out, like Washington My Health, My Data, that were about tracking technologies. So Washington My Health and these other copycat laws, or whatever you want to call them, didn't come out because of Sephora, but I think Sephora started the trend of thinking about tracking tech in relation to healthcare. And what happened next was, we saw clients in the healthcare space come to us. I saw folks just in the privacy community otherwise who, as My Health, My Data was announced, right, whatever that was 2 years ago, saying like, what does this really mean? What do these consents mean? How are we supposed to do this practically, et cetera? And when I came to TrustArc, like we were thinking long and hard about like, what does this really mean? What is the technology that we have to build to actually fulfill this requirement? and fulfill it in a way that aligns with, countless clients of ours who all have a different perspective themselves. And so it was a really, it was probably, and, Paul and Kay, you both worked at TrustArc at some point, so maybe but I assume in some ways it was a little bit like when TrustArc was first building its data inventory hub tool, like right at the advent of GDPR, where they were like, what is a ROPA supposed to look like?
Right.
Technology tool, right? That's a really, it's, heavy's the head, right? I mean, that's a big task
It
to
is.
think about what it's supposed to do for, hundreds or thousands of organizations. How is it supposed to look when, you ask, you could ask 5 privacy people what a law is supposed to do or mean or be implemented, and they'll have total opinions, right?
Yeah.
Yes. And it's a continuously moving target because the interpretation of the law changed because of guidance from supervisory authority, because of enforcement before the courts, because a scholar writes an article and says, oh no, but you see it wrong, it should be completely the other direction. So that makes it really hard also to have a definitive view well in advance, hey, this is what you should do. And then for a lot of these privacy and data protection laws, you can read them in the broader context of the global data protection industry, right? You already have over 50 years of data protection laws that exist with all their guidance, with all their application. So it is not completely novel. But if you look now at the AI legislation, it all comes with all new kinds of terminology, whether you are a deployer or a provider, and risk assessment. You see it in the EU AI Act, but also now in the Korea AI Act that was just adopted earlier this week and will enter into force a year from now. You saw it in the US executive order that was now rescinded. That is much less in context because it is a completely new domain. The same with things like the Digital Service and Digital Markets Act in the European Union. And they enter into force very quickly, often within a year. And I have the feeling it's scrambling for a lot of organizations, similar to the scrambling that happened when China suddenly announced, oh yeah, we have a privacy law and it applies 6 weeks from now. And the Washington My Health, My Data feels a lot like that, even though that has entered into force by now and we have a bit more understanding. But it was like, okay, we have something and be aware, you should act now.
I'm gonna poke fun at some people without like naming them, but I remember when the Privacy Shield fell and the European Data Protection Board came out with their supplemental measures guidelines. They, I think for a lot of us who were there, we were like, oh, really? They have answers, right? But really, like, frankly, those were
no, we didn't.
For 1, no, we didn't. For 2, those were tricky. For 3, I mean, they were advisory at the end of the day. They weren't mandatory. But for 4, pretty much a minute after they came out, I remember getting inbounds from clients, right, at former dog, whatever, being like, which, do you have all these measures? And I was like, are you kidding me? Or even like when we heard about transfer impact assessments, right? Like, I think the minute that it hit the press wire that those were a thing that needed to happen, I remember getting like demands for TIAs. And I was like, nobody has this yet.
Right.
It was announced 5 seconds ago. I can't write such a thing in 5 seconds.
Right. And I think with AI, I mean, the EU and some of these other bills are better, but I think that like in some ways, it's kind of the same paradigm, which is like this company is just starting to use this somewhat experimental technology. They have, for most of the companies, some companies are doing insane things, right? I mean, well, I'm going to exclude like the IBMs of the world. We're building things like Watson and they know about AI. But most of the companies out there who are using AI are like, they signed a e-commerce contract with OpenAI and they're using their stuff, right? And when that's the case, and you have a really sophisticated buyer, because this happened too a couple of years back, who's like, hey, I'm going to give you a risk assessment. I need to know if you're training the model. I need you to guarantee that you're going to give me my data back if I do this, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of hilarious because it's like, you're sophisticated enough to ask me these questions, but you're not sophisticated enough to know that nobody can answer them yet, right? And that's there's a lot of that going on, right? And Washington My Health had a little bit of that too, which I have some experience with because I remember, sorry, this is a bit of a rant. But years ago, I remember the FTC came out with these really great, not FTC, FCC, it's Federal Communication Commission, which is the telecom regulator of the US. They came out with some laws that were really good about 911, which is the emergency hotline. They were rules about being able to find somebody in a multi-level building, dispatchable location laws, right? They were really good. They were about making sure that if Jane Doe is in a college campus, dials 911 from her dorm or wherever, that you know that she's on floor 4 to bring emergency services. But I remember when those laws came out, there were two. There was Kerry's Law and Raybulb's Act around that same time. I remember talking to outside counsel, and we were like, this was years back, right? I mean, this is what's up. But at the time, it wasn't. And outside counsel we were like, how do we do this? This technology doesn't really exist. It's pretty clunky to find this dispatchable location. And at the time, they were like, yeah, industry's going to have to figure it out. That's the goal, right? And I think that that's what I'm seeing with some of these other things like Washington's My Health. When it first came out, there were all these rules about what kind of consent is needed to do certain things. And for those of you that don't know, if you want to sell data or share data or collect data, you actually need 3 separate consents for Washington My Health. And for selling of data, which is not selling in the K gives Val $50 for a piece of paper with information, but the CCPA definition more so, your wet signature.
A wet signature is what kills me.
Well, but a wet signature, thinking about tracking technologies on a website.
Right.
How do you put a wet signature in a tick box?
Right.
You got to ruin your monitor. You got to replace your monitor afterwards. It's the whole thing.
Just imagine President Trump taking his Sharpie and autographing the screen of his laptop to give consent.
Yeah.
Under the Washington My Health Act. Val, I hate to shut down your rant, but we are at time.
No worries.
So I would like to thank you for joining us. People can find you on LinkedIn, and they will probably be able to find you at the Global Privacy Summit this year if they want to continue that conversation. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Yeah, see you all at GPS.
That was Serious Privacy.
This wraps up our podcast for this week. Please do share the episode with your friends and colleagues because we love to get more listeners. And join the conversation on LinkedIn or on Blue Sky. You'll find us under Serious Privacy on both platforms. You'll find Kay as Heart of Privacy, Ralph as IGR O'Brien, and myself as Europol B. Until next week, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No, that's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.